across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Oh, guns up, giddy up. Welcome to Failure to Stop Fridays. This is Breakdown Fridays. We are covering Part 3 of the Daniel Holtzclaw case. This one's titled The Victims. We're going to go through all the victims of the Daniel Holtzclaw case. Today's show is brought to you by Ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. I am joined today with my co-host, the easy, the breezy, the beautiful Andrew Baxter.
Doesn't even rhyme. You know, I actually bought a souvenir for my travels in the Caribbean. And I completely forgot it.
Damn it.
I'm so disappointed.
You know, because you're back from your cruise, I expected something like the episode from The Office where you have the beads in your hair and you have that ba-da-da-dum-bum-ba-dum-bum-bum. You know, the little Congo drum, or not Congo, whatever that thing is called. Like,
feeling hot, hot, hot.
Yeah, feeling hot, hot, hot.
It did me like that.
Welcome back from your cruise. I'm glad that it wasn't you who jumped over and got eaten by sharks. When I saw that
Nobody
story,
said it wasn't.
When I saw that story, I said, boy, that's got to be Drew. It's got to be Drew.
Right.
But I'm glad you're here with us. Today's show is brought to you by Ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. That sleep so good, it's scary. Thank you to them. Also, right now, Rip Pack. If you want to clean your teeth, Rip Pack has got a huge Father's Day sale going on using our promo code Wolfpack. So big shout out to them. And then Outbound Beef Jerky, who's big supporters, followers of the show, sending beef jerky all the time. Outbound Beef Jerky, former law enforcement officer owned company there. Beth's Beef Jerky, low sodium, all made right from his little workshop. You can go online and watch him make this stuff. You can order it online, but head over to Outbound Beef Jerky. Head over to Rip Pack. Get you some tea. Matter of fact, one of my buddies is hiking in Mexico right now and reached out to tell me how much he appreciates the Rip Pack, which is essentially a powdered toothpaste that doesn't need any water.
The steel drums.
Yeah, steel drums. Does that take you back, Drew?
It does.
Take you back?
Yeah, I felt like I was still on the cruise.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. But yeah, anyway, Rip Pack is such cool stuff, man. My kids, when we travel, they're always up on that Rip Pack. It's a great way to brush your teeth if you don't have water. If you need something light, you don't want to have a toothpaste tube that's squirting everywhere on your travels. Keep it in your cop cars when you got that coffee breath. Pop a Rip Pack. Doesn't stink so bad. Big news, though, real quick before we dive into this part 3 of Daniel Holtzclaw case. I think we haven't. But I don't want to give away that news. But we do have Manscaped back on for another couple of months, which is really crazy. And then we've got a new sponsor coming on. Sponsor I haven't had in like 3 years. Coming out of the woodworks. Totally randomonious. And I think it's because it's in time for the fight with Nate Diaz coming up. I think that's why they're reaching out to us, because I think they know a lot of cops are going to be watching that. So if you are going to watch the Nate Diaz fight and you're possibly into betting, we are going to be starting a summer promo with a company, and you might be able to bet head-to-head with me. I like to bet on all the crazy, stupid stuff in sports, like what color shorts they'll wear and all those kind of how long the fight's going to last and all
prop
those
bets.
things. So, prop bets. Is that what they're called? Prop bets?
Yeah.
Shows you how much I know about betting. I always lose, so.
Yeah. Well, then you know a lot more about betting than.
I never win those things. I usually vote, like if I'm going to bet on something, especially in sports, since I don't sports very much except for rugby, I just go on whatever mascot I think would win in real life.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So
Solid logic.
It is good logic. It doesn't work out most of the time, but what can I say? Do we have any reviews out there, Elijah? I know I just sprung this on you. So I'm not gonna blame you if we do or don't. No, don't even worry about it. I forgot about it until just now. We have a couple of people in the live chats today. We want to thank them for being in there. A lot of people in the live chats actually today. A lot of you guys are interested in part 3. We also have the Patreon with lots of bonus content. So if you want to follow us over there on Patreon, that's enough of that. Let's get into this Daniel Holtzclaw case part 3. Unless you have something, unless you've got some kind of breaking news.
No, what breaking news? I could show you a screenshot of my Google where I Googled the word. Well, I don't even want to say it. I don't even want to say the biggest news story that I would think yesterday, like the one you called me about.
Yes, disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, and I Googled it, and it literally says things are changing rapidly. I don't think we're going to show you too many search results on this. So make sure you check your. I've never seen that on Google before.
I've never either. So what happened was the whistleblower that we've been covering on the Last Call episode, which is on our Wednesday episodes here on the Fair Stuff podcast channel. I have been covering this almost every week. It's the whistleblower, the Burisma whistleblower. And it's been crazy because the FBI isn't talking. And dude, I don't know if you guys follow any of this stuff, and you probably don't because you're first responders. But you need to know that like there's so much stonewalling going on right now. It's unprecedented. Nobody will answer any questions. So basically the government has just said anything that's questionable on Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or anything like that, or Epstein, we're not going to answer it. We'll just not answer the questions. And so this is leaving us with absolutely zero answers. And so with this whole Burisma thing, they had the 17 tapes. They're not classified. And the FBI's been asked several times why you won't show the tapes. And they won't give an answer. They just simply are.
No, they will give an answer. They did give an answer. I dug and finally found some articles because Anna Paulina Luna, who is from this area, actually from down here in Tampa, she's on the other side of the bay, but she's kind of been at them, at their throats over this thing. And their answer was, well, we're afraid that our informant is going to be killed.
Right. That was the latest thing that came out. They said that the reason why they couldn't come out with the 17 tapes was because of security reasons, because they couldn't protect the whistleblower. And they were right, because yesterday the whistleblower was found dead in a very brief 30-minute post by Sean Hannity that was immediately taken down. So this post goes out. Rudy Giuliani also made a post. Everybody's on the buzz feeds. If you're like, so when you're in a podcast like this and you're in media, you have like lots of networks that feed and funnel information very rapidly, very quickly. And you got to kind of figure out what sources you trust. And for us, especially, it's super important because we never want to let go of like fake news. We never want to jump the gun. That's why we're always late. We're never first with the news because we know that the headlines are never real. It's never the totality.
No.
And case in point, this whole Trump thing, the donor going down in the plane crash, like I really wanted to get out there on that one because I thought that was crazy. But then you look at the totality of it, and I mean, is it suspicious? A little bit, but is she really a donor? Is she really the daughter? She was adopted at 40 years old. Was she a really big donor? It was only $250,000. So I'm glad we waited because the headline was a lot more salacious than the truth. So, but in this case, we get all this information and that the whistleblower is dead. And I feel like I have invested interest in this whistleblower because I've been covering it for 4 weeks and I've been studying it religiously. So like, I don't know the whistleblower, but like, I know everything.
I think it's the wife of the former chairman of Burisma who was killed.
Well, now we
during
know.
the Obama administration.
Right. And just big bombshell news. And then in less than 30 minutes, everything was scrubbed from the internet. Everything. You could not Google anything about Burisma after that 30 minutes. This was about what, like 4:30 yesterday, 5 o'clock?
Yeah, something like that. You called me about 5 o'clock. But so in addition to the news sources or whatever I use to gather information, like I like to be well read. In fact, we covered this ad nauseum last night. If I open my mouth about something, I've well researched it. But I also like to Google because I want to know what the wolf pack is going to see, and I want to be able to like relate to you or just say, hey, look, here's a quick and easy source for you. And when I type in, you see at the top, Biden whistleblower dead is what I typed in at the top. I have never seen this on Google in my entire life. It says, it looks like the results below are changing quickly. If this topic is new, it can sometimes take time for reliable sources to publish information. Like, why?
Because this is the shit that will start a civil war, Drew. This is the kind of shit that will make me lose my fucking mind. Yes. Like, this is so insane. Like, if this is real, if this is true, like I am going to pursue it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to make some kind of a crazy post or if I'm going to protest or try to go to a protest. But like, this is the kind of shit that like I draw the line. Like, this is so blatant in your face. Now we're like, we know that that Hillary's been murdering people, and we know like it's all been conspiracy, it's all been fun and games. But now, like I see it because I've been following it for 4 weeks, and now this person's dead. Now, listen, I'm not going to jump to the gun. If this person had like stage 4 cancer, and I learn all these other things because we still don't know a lot about it. Then I'm going to let it die, right? You know what I'm saying? People can die. Not everything is a conspiracy. But if you don't give me some of that truth, and right now it looks like the government's not, because I feel like if they did have stage 4 cancer, they would just come right out and say something like that. So right now it's like the way that they're treating this gives me more evidence than not that this is something nefarious. But I'm telling you what, dude, if this comes out to be nefarious, this is like, I'm done. Like, I'm over it. You killed Epstein. You killed, like, I'm done. Like, I want my freedom. I've sworn an oath to protect this country. I served in the army. I served in the police department. I'm done. I will finally stand up. I don't care that I have 5 kids. I will stand up and protest, get blasted with pepper sprays and all the bullshits, and get my name ran through the dirt. Whatever it takes, I'm willing to go there at this point, because I feel like it's my duty.
From a conspiracy theory standpoint, all right, there are several avenues you could take. Look, this is from the Daily Mail. This is from June 5th. Biden whistleblowers fear for their lives. Republicans say FBI won't hand over alleged $5 million bribery document because key informant safety could be in jeopardy. So now, all of a sudden, the guy or the man or woman turns up dead. Is this the FBI faking the death so nobody else gets to them? Is this the is this the deep state of the war in between Russia and Ukraine, where Russia kills them, and it strains the relationships between Ukraine and the U.S.? Is it really that obvious that maybe it was James Comey himself, allegedly swimming underground, complete parody, by the way, taking a submarine to wherever this person was and, asking with a cloth in his hand, does this smell like chloroform? Right, exactly. That's how they did it in the spy movies. Was it James Comey standing behind the curtains where you only saw his feet sticking out? You know what I'm saying? So
these are crazy times, dude.
These are crazy times, and we just don't know. Or is it that the U.S. is getting ready to indict the sitting president finally, because they have more than 5 million in bribes. They have 10 million in bribes. They're 15 million in bribes, and they're getting ready to take him down, but they don't want to jeopardize the case and XYZ. There's a million different avenues. So in a sense, I can see why Google is saying, hey, slow down.
And I hope that's what that's why I'm not jumping to the gun either. That's why we didn't go live.
But the other side of it is Google created that atmosphere. Google is the one that says, I got you all of your results in 0.067 seconds. They're the ones that have fostered this instant gratification, instant information. It's their fault. So,
but I feel like if this was on the other side of the fence, Google would just let the rumors run rampant. You know what I mean?
Agree.
Like if there's like some kind of a sexual allegation that there's no evidence and there's no way it can be proved, they'll just run to the hills with it, and they'll just, have at it. Mer 530, my favorite catfish. Still don't know if Mer 530 is a dude or a girl. As always, wishing everybody a happy flippin' Friday. And I couldn't agree with him more. I've got a little Black Rifle coffee in my coffee mug here today. I got my mullet trimmed up. It's looking good. It's flowing. You've got your Superwoman mug. I'm guessing
I believe she's Wonder Woman.
Is that Wonder Woman in solidarity with today's detective? Wonder Woman?
Yep,
the fucking
exactly right.
Feminist.
Thank you. Thanks for saving that.
Listen, I was in a weird mood when I woke up this morning, and this is important to the Daniel Holtzclaw Part 3 breakdown for all you new listeners, because you need to know the mood that I'm in. And I'm a moody guy. It's hard to get me in a bad. There are some people that get me in a bad mood really, really quick. Real quick. I don't know what this picture on YouTube is of me, but thank you guys for putting that up. You guys just have like a database of me making stupid fucking faces for you to put on.
I screenshotted that when you were looking at us during like an audio test.
Oh my gosh. He's our producer is creepy, man. He's creepy. He's the kind of guy that's like, everybody gets drunk at a party and he's like, I got a picture of Tansy peeing on a car. Look at this. And you're like, what? What? How did you even get that picture?
That's such a specific reference. I know. Has that happened to you
because
before?
It's always something like that.
I don't know. When
what I
I
mean?
go to a party and somebody does something stupid, I don't take a picture because I'm the guy that's like, I don't want evidence of tonight, and I think that's rude. But there's always one dude in the party that like wants to have evidence of all the stupid shit you've done, as if like, I don't know. It's like it's good practice to just always never have evidence.
Why are you
So
No, why are you gay? I don't. I take exception to that because I was that guy, and it was more because I wanted to remember what the fuck I did.
yeah, see, I don't want to remember. I don't want there to be any evidence. I don't want them to be able to like, Eric, did you pee on that cop car last night when you were drunk? I'm like, I would have no idea. I don't know. But if I saw a picture of it, I'd be like, well,
One could guess. I mean,
one could say I did see a picture. But I was in a mood today, and I guess my mood was, I think about this case. I've been thinking about this case now for 3 weeks. And, the night before I do one of these shows, I kind of play what I'm going to do in my head, even though what I play in my head doesn't really come out of my mouth during the show. I plan it all out, and then I wake up in the morning, and then I kind of get my thoughts together. But on this case, my thoughts change so much. And I don't know why I'm so invested in this case, Drew. Emotionally, I'm invested in this case because I feel from the bottom of my heart that this man is innocent, maybe. But I really I felt that way about several cases that we've broken down over the years. But in this particular case, man, I don't know what it is, but I am very invested in this, and I lose sleep over the thought of him being in prison. I lose sleep over watching him cry. I lose sleep on what the news said about him crying. I mean, just all of it makes me generally sick to my stomach. And that kind of all came to fruition this morning when I was writing the description. And I was really mad at the detective. And I don't like to be mad at the cops. I don't like to be mad at my own kind, my own people. But sometimes I do, like Daniel Perkins, there are cases where I'm just like, the cops are wrong. The cops got it wrong. And in this case, the cops did get it wrong. And it wasn't the cop, the street cop. It was the political cops that poisoned the profession. It was this detective who clearly, even by her haircut, is a feminist. She allowed these kind of ideologies to take her down a path in this investigation that's unfair. And I think this happens not very often.
well,
But often enough.
the general public would argue that it happens all the time, which means, there are plenty of innocent.
There's
people
checks
sitting
and
in prison.
balances. There's checks and balances. When I arrest somebody, and it's been personal. I don't think any cop can say that every arrest has been non-personal to them. There's always some arrests that are personal. There are cases where you hear the victim's story and you relate to the story, and then that case becomes personal, and you just want to fuck over the suspect.
Right.
By the way, I don't know how you could say, if I was really racist, if cops were really racist, they would go and listen to these victims who are often of a certain color, or it can be, I don't know, maybe if you hate Mexicans, right? And the victim's going to be Mexican. Wouldn't it be better to just fuck the victim over? Like, wouldn't that be more hateful than to go after the suspect?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you really hated somebody based on the color of their skin, wouldn't you want them to be victims? Like, wouldn't that be part of the racial justice that you seek, the racist justice that you seek? So but I have had cases where I'm like, fuck this guy. He's an asshole. I'm going to put the cuffs on him extra tight, not going to roll down the windows to give him any airflow on the way to the prison. Going to listen to the opposite type of music that he wants to listen to, because fuck him. But then you have detectives that are going to pick that case up, and they're going to be neutral. And that's what I mean by checks and balances, because it's not personal to them. They didn't get to sit there with the victim. They didn't get spit on, or they didn't have to chase this guy and get sweaty. It's not personal to them. And that's where these checks and balances come in. So even if it was personal to me, doesn't mean it's going to be personal to the detective. But in this case, we didn't have that. We had one detective. It was personal to her, and there was no checks and balances.
Yeah. Not only are they not, they're gonna side on the. What am I trying to say? They're going to lean towards the side of the defendant, because a detective's bread and butter in an interrogation is the ability to build a rapport. So if it's completely not personal to them, they're able to build that rapport a little bit better. And if it's, like Eric's saying, like if you put the cuffs on too tight, if you don't let the dude have a cig, if you play country music and he's not wanting to hear country music and maybe you blare it a little bit louder than normal, if you brake check on the way and he happens to slam his head into the cage, whatever, that defendant is not going to cooperate with you. And it makes it harder for the detective. The detective has to rehabilitate the relationship and try to get the defendant to be a little bit more amenable to telling the truth or building this rapport to at least, getting truthful information out of them. You can't, as a detective, just flip a switch and all of a sudden, if you're going to do that, you might as well just say, okay, well, I'm done talking to you. I'm out of here. You can't talk somebody into a confession. That's putting somebody in jail or prison for the wrong reasons. You can't do that. That's, when the detective makes it personal, and if that bias doesn't show on the stand, you're taking a risk you're taking a professional risk that you're never going to be credible as a witness again. If that bias
detectives,
comes out.
though, for street cops, you're dealing with 25 cases a day. And there are all sorts of different cases with all sorts of different stresses. I don't need to go into that. You guys all know what's up with that. But a detective, has the comforts of being able to walk to the refrigerator and grab a strawberry. They can go to the vending machine and get a Snicker bar. They can go sit on the toilet where it's safe, and they can take their gun belt off in the locker room and hang it up and then go take a 45-minute shit on the clock. Detectives have a way of controlling the pace of life, and it's a lot easier for them to not take things personally because they have a lot of ways that they can kind of de-escalate themselves when they're feeling like it's personal. Police officer can't do that. We can't escape it. We go from call to call to call, and sometimes these calls hurt your feelings, and sometimes these calls are rapidly evolving. Sometimes you can identify with the victim, and sometimes that the victim's full of shit, and now you're angry because you're like, they're full of shit. They're using the system, i.e. the many number of prostitutes who claim rape based because they didn't get paid what the agreed number is. And you're like, bitch, this isn't rape. You're the one that chose to come out here, whether they chose to or not, but that's what you're feeling in that moment because you're upset that you're now, going on, you're doing rape kits, you're tying up tons of time only to know that this woman 4 hours from now and video surveillance footage and all the other evidence is going to line up that this was just an unpaid prostitution scandal, that they agreed to the sex, they agreed to the blowjob. And that happens every single night. And it gets super frustrating. And sometimes it's personal. And you're mad at these victims. And so, for this case, this case is kind of personal to me at this point, but this detective, there's no checks and balances for her. And she takes this case personal from the beginning. And I think that she is the cause of a lot of these problems. And it's the reason why the city is making payouts to women who were caught lying, to women in this case who were charged with lying, overwhelming evidence that shows that they're lying. And the city's having to do payouts and kind of ridiculous payouts. And it's all because this one woman took one thing and ran with it without having any checks and balances or without doing any real investigative police work. And we're going to dive into it. And I'm sorry for the rant there. And by the way, guys, if you want a lot quicker version of this case breakdown, there's a lot of podcasts out there. And you'll see that the ones that are trying to paint Daniel Holtzclaw as being innocent, they come at you very calmly. They come at you with facts and truth and evidence. And the ones who want Daniel Holtzclaw to be guilty, they say things like roid rager, piece of shit, scumbag, dick face, jock, toxic white man syndrome, raper, coward, small dick. They have to use so much lingo, but it's because they have a lack of evidence to show that he's guilty at all. All they can do is belittle his name and make fun of him without providing any evidence as to what they're talking about. Right. A couple politicians that do that. One in particular that loves to run his mouth and make fun of people without backing up his statement with facts. And that's the one thing I might hate about that guy. Might love other things about him, but I hate that part. If you're going to say something, back it up with some evidence. Don't just talk shit. And so in this case, there was Deadleg, help me out here on the fact check, but I think it was it 21 women?
13 women came forward, but they only brought 8 to trial.
Okay. So 13 women.
No, you said, hold on. You said came forward, which is not true.
There
were that many women that were brought into the investigation. They didn't necessarily come forward.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I see what you're saying. It's a little semantics there on Drew's part. So Deadleg was right. 13 women who accused the cop of sexual assault in their own words. Now, part one of this, we talk about the hood and talk about hood mentality, and that's really, really important for this case. Super important for this case. And then the second episode, we talk about the just extremely biased interview and the techniques used. And I want to go back to that last one because remember that interview was going pretty good in Daniel Holtzclaw's favor. He was showing zero indicators of lying, showing zero indicators of stress. Matter of fact, he does not lawyer up. He says, like, let's do a polygraph on this. Like, let's take my clothes, scrape me for DNA, whatever you need. Let's just go ahead and do it. I don't need a lawyer. I don't care what the charges are. I know this is bogus. Do what you got to do. And the detectives are like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's go. Until there's a phone call with Daniel Holtzclaw's girlfriend that involves, did you have sex with your girlfriend that night? They call the girlfriend. Maybe. I don't have a copy of that. We have copies of everything else, but that phone conversation. Why do detectives, why do these cases, why do these podcasts fail to release that part of the audio? I'm not sure. Have you heard any audio?
No, I think it was brought up at trial. I don't know that it was even recorded, but I think it was brought up at trial.
Right. So everything else is recorded except this one's not. So I'm not even sure. Yeah. Did she call there? What did that conversation entail? But I'll tell you what, you call my wife at, in the middle of the day and you ask her, did I try to have sex with her last night? She doesn't know who you are. I don't know that you're going to get a straight answer out of my wife. Because my wife doesn't have any reason to tell the truth. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know what your agenda is. She doesn't know why you're asking that. So she has no reason to disclose information.
She's not obligated.
She's not obligated to. And so I think it's 50-50 with my wife. I'm the kind of guy that never lies about really anything. If it's point blank like that, like, did you fuck your wife last night? Fuck yeah, I did, dude. Yeah. No, I didn't. I wish I did. Yeah. I'm the kind of guy that's just going to come right out with it. My wife, she's 50-50 on shit like that. Like, yeah, she may or may not tell you.
So this is my take on this, Eric. Like, I had a little detente in the comments, a little back and forth. There's somebody in the comments right in the chat right now that knows that I'm good. I'm up for a good debate. I want to be wrong so I can learn, or I want to educate so somebody else can learn from what I know. And this person was just essentially telling me, come on, it was suspicious that he didn't just say, look, let's put it to rest. I didn't rape those girls. And my whole point all along was, let's be clear. He never had an obligation to say that. He doesn't have an obligation to say that. Let's put it in the terms of the amendments of the Constitution. The Fifth Amendment, right against self-incrimination. Sixth Amendment is the right to attorney. Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. Second Amendment is right to bear arms. So, Eric, if I come up to you on the street and say, hey, do you have a gun in your house? And you're like, it's none of your business. No, you need to tell me. Yeah, you need to tell me if there's a gun in your house. No. I'm not going to tell you. Well, wait a second. I'm going to call your house, and I'm going to see if there's a gun in your room. And then they come back to you after making that phone call and start grilling you on the fact that somebody said, well, there might be a gun, but maybe there's not. You have no obligation to talk. It is on the government official to prove that you have a gun in your house. This is the same thing. It's the government official making the allegation, the detective. It is on her to prove that he raped her. Therefore, as a defendant, and I'm telling you, I taught interviews and interrogations, a week-long class for 10 years. I will be one of the first to tell you, you don't need to speak to the police. I taught from a place of, we need to get people to talk to us. We need to build a rapport and build trust to get them to talk to us because they don't have an obligation to say anything to us. So when I find it very offensive when you start grilling a guy about if he fucked his girlfriend that morning or not, and then all of a sudden you think you got an aha moment because he said, well, we have sex every morning. You just said you had sex every morning. And she said you don't have sex every morning.
She
Now you
doesn't
think
do
you're
this
onto
with
something.
any of the other interviews. We're going to find out very quickly. She doesn't do this with any of the other interviews. When she has an aha moment that they're lying, she almost is. It's not so much like an aha, you're lying, like it was with Daniel Holtzclaw. It's like, well, are you remembering differently?
All right, but how about this though? Let's put the shoe on the other foot again, because I'm all about analogies today. Apparently, say I've got Brittany in the. Is she in the chat? Say I've got her in the box in the interrogation room, and I'm saying, listen, I'm going to call your husband and I'm going to ask him if he fucked you. And she's an employee of my fellow employee, right? And I leave and I come back and I'm look, I called your husband. He says you didn't fuck. So I think you're lying. How many times a day do you fuck? Okay, when do you fuck? How do you fuck him? Do you get on top? Does this not seem a little inappropriate to you? I mean, just a little fucking inappropriate to you? So why is it appropriate for her to be asking those questions?
I thought it was inappropriate from her at the very beginning of the interviews that we covered last week, where she talks about like the ways that she likes to have sex. And she's like, do you shave down there? I do. I shave down there. Like nobody, one, detective, you are not somebody that I want to picture. I don't want to picture your bush at all. Oh gosh, never mind. Just when she said that, I was like,
speaking of Manscaped.
Yeah, speaking of manscaped.com/Wolfpack, you don't have to worry about it if you manscape. She actually says Manscaped in the interview, so maybe she's sponsored by Manscaped. Yeah, I think it's very inappropriate, and her aha moment I think was very immature. And then we ran on semantics. Is it semantics or semantics?
Semantics.
Semantics. She runs on semantics there where she's like, well, you said you fuck every day. I mean, listen, generally speaking, do I want to have sex every single day? Yes. In reality, do I have sex every day? No. Some days I wake up and I take my kids to the skate park. It's not that I didn't want to have sex or I didn't intend on having sex, but like, you know, if you say, do you have sex every day? Generally speaking, yes, I have sex every day. That's where my brain goes. But technically, like realistically, do I have sex every day, 369 days a year? No, I don't.
There isn't a Garrity rule, an IA law or rule that says that this is appropriate, like that you can just keep going down this line of questioning. There isn't an interrogation or interview tactic that says that this is the appropriate way to do things. It's not. It just doesn't happen that way. Like it's inappropriate. Like I understand that she may be trying to clarify whether there should be DNA or a couple of strands of DNA on his private parts or maybe even on his pants, but there's a way to go about that. And if you'll remember at the end of the interview, he never stopped 1 second. He didn't hesitate 1 second to hand over the stuff he was wearing, and said, in fact, I think he even gave him permission to go to his house and get the other stuff. So
he gave him the cell phones. He gave him he gave them the laptops, and they never chose to go through those. Do you find that odd?
Gee, I wonder why. I mean,
because I don't think there was anything on there. Yeah. And if there wasn't anything on there, what does it do to their case? Instead of saying like, let's go through this and see what's on there. And you know, like if he's got just hordes of pornography and hordes of, inner city black chick sex porn and all this stuff, like, I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Like then you can at least have evidence in your brain to keep going with this investigation. But if he has none of that on his computer, or nothing like that on his computer, you have nothing. So, why didn't they go through his phones? Why didn't they go through his computer?
Yeah.
When he gave them permission to.
This is 2015. We're still in the area. We're still pre-iCloud pretty much. So this is the era where you would take whatever's on your phone and plug it into your laptop and download everything. So you freed up memory and space. You would think that they would want to check the cell phone to make sure there's not a naked prostitute in the back of a patrol car. And then you would also want to check the laptop to make sure that there wasn't something downloaded even from the last 5 years that the guy's been working there. Right. Because that could be used against him, or that could be kind of damning. But I found it highly inappropriate that she's having this conversation, but she's caught up in, I'm trying to catch him in a lie, But this is a human resources nightmare. I don't give a shit about a criminal investigation. He's still a citizen of the United States. He's still a human being, and you have to treat him with respect and dignity. And you know, frankly, like if that line of questioning came my way, I'd be like, "Are you trying to prove I'm horny? Because I'll fuck you right now." Like, yeah, I'm horny. What's that got to do with anything? Yeah, I mean, you know, really, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, you're not proving anything in your interrogation by doing that, and you're not catching me in a lie. You're catching him in what you want to hear as his lie.
Right, exactly. And I think and when you're in an investigation like this and you're sitting in Daniel Holtzclaw's position, being a street cop, you know, one, she's already the enemy. We talked about this in episode 1. Like, you know, the officer by the book is always the enemy of the real street cop, and they're always gonna. And you need both of those types of cops because that's what makes things balanced. But like his attitude is like, yeah, I'm going to beat you in this because I'm not going to lawyer up because then I'm just giving you what you want. And you're gonna be like, oh, okay, good. Yeah, let's lawyer up. You know, he's like, no, I'll just squash it right now. You have nothing. Like, go ahead, take all my stuff, go into all your little shits, do it now. Let's, you know, and he catches them because he's like, let's do a polygraph, and they're not ready. Like they're not even ready to do any of this stuff. And so that's a great recap of kind of where we got to our thing. But I want to go now into the investigations, and just how flawed this investigator, this detective is, and the people that she chooses, that she chooses, to come forward.
Can I get my
none of these women, none of these victims came forward. All of these victims, except the
first one did, right?
The first one did,
Liggins.
which was Liggins. And that takes us to the traffic stop, which is what led us to episode 2, right? The traffic stop and the investigation. So Liggins came out and said that she was raped on the car. Now, in her interview, she says that she was forced to place both of her hands in a doggy style position on the car while she was groped and everything. They could not find those fingerprints that matched. There's none of her fingerprints on the hood or the rear or the roof, anywhere on the car. They could not find.
On a busy street.
This is on a busy street. So they already caught her in a lie. That did not happen. Also, the surveillance footage shows that everything that you could see on the surveillance is backed up by what Daniel says in his interview. Nothing that he says in his interview can be disproven. However, things that are in the video can be disproven on what she says it happened. And so she says that she was orally sodomized by Daniel Holtzclaw. She's then brought into the interview room 90 minutes after this allegedly took place, and she's given a rape kit. And the biologist in the trial is going to say some pretty damning words. In my thing is when they asked, was there any DNA of Daniel's inside of the mouth of Miss Liggins during the rape kit? And she says, unfortunately, there was no DNA found. Why is that unfortunate?
I'm sure it's just a slip of the tongue, no pun intended. But I also believe that it's subconscious. So, which leads perfectly into what we're getting ready to talk about, because there is extensive research about the brain when it comes to eyewitness identification. So for years and years, we had a faulty eyewitness identification procedure process in the United States, and people are in prison over it. I mean, it's just plucking somebody out of a big book of mugshots, or we had a faulty way of doing things. So an academic actually just did a bunch of research. There's a paper called Eyewitness Identification Procedures, Recommendations for Lineups and Photo Spreads. And it's kind of like the governing Bible. It's what the Department of Justice, or the National Institute of Justice anyway, they use to kind of craft these ways of procedures, kind of as a guidance for all the major departments to use, and hopefully the smaller departments will go into it. And there's 4 variables that are going to affect an outcome of a lineup. Now, keep this in mind. This is in your brain. This is like academic studies, the peer-reviewed and everything. Pre-lineup instructions given to the witness. So you can't say things like, okay, I'm going to show you 6 photos. Tell me which one is the guy, because that suggests that the guy is in the 6 photos. You can't say that. you can't suggest that. So you don't want to get set subliminally. You don't want them to believe that they're in there. The fillers are very important when you're doing a photo lineup. So if you're doing, whether it's the old school 6-pack, which is 6 photos, which we don't use anymore, hopefully in many major departments, we use the sequential lineup. But the fillers, meaning, if you look at your screen right now and you're on YouTube and they say, okay, it was a middle-aged white male with very short hair. Here are 2 pictures. One is Eric on the right. One is Drew on the left. Who is the suspect? You know who the suspect is. Like, they're only gonna. It's always Eric. They're always gonna pick. They're gonna, like, you have to have people that look like Eric, or you have to have people that look like me as the filler photographs, because otherwise it's suggestive, right? It was like there was an old joke way back when of, there was a detective that did a photo pack in the old 6-pack style, and everybody was pointing except for the guilty guys. So, the guy on the right of him and the guy on the left of him were pointing towards him, and the other guys were pointing up. So
now I don't know if you've done this or not, but I have done one of the photo lineups where I did not have the suspect in the photo lineup, just to see what was going on here. And without a doubt, 100%, I'd say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 100%, like, how sure are you that this is the guy? 100%. 10. That's a 10. That's definitely him. And you're sure. And why do you think that's him? Oh, because he had this was the facial hair. But I mean, this is him, man. Like, I can still see it in his eyes. Oh, I'm having flat, the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, dude, this guy's
not even in there.
This guy's from, like, Oregon and probably died like 2 years ago. Like,
that's literally Howie Mandel. Like, I literally showed you fucking Howie Mandel, and you're saying that
but because the hood lies, and that's why the first episode of this, although it did not make a lot of sense at the time, and I told you it wasn't, it makes a lot of sense now, because, and when we talk about the hood, again, we're talking about the 3 streets in the south part of whatever, or the north part, wherever your hood, quote unquote, is. There is 3 streets where all the prostitutes, where all the hookers, where all the gang members, where they all congregate together. And it's 3 blocks, and everybody, and they know everybody. And what we're talking about right here in this case is 3 freaking community blocks where everybody knows each other and everybody is committing crimes. And when I say everybody, I mean every single body. You do not go to those streets unless you are looking for crack, a prostitute, or somebody to rob, steal, or take advantage of. That's it. There's no other reason for you to go down there unless you're feeding the homeless or something like that. Other than that, there's no other reason to be there. And these victims are all plucked from that same 3 blocks.
Everybody in there knows the cops that work in there.
Yeah,
they know them by sight. They have a nickname for them. I guarantee it.
Well, so I was always Tanny, right? Like, it was always Tanny.
Well, because you're...
Or Justin Bieber, honestly.
You tan well. I could see why. So Abby asked you a great question. Why is the 6-pack bad and the sequential better? And let me answer that question real quick. When you've got 6 photographs in front of you, you are using your brain to identify, like, well, it looks a little bit more like this guy than it does this guy. So let's eliminate that one. It definitely doesn't look like this guy. Let's eliminate that. But you have 6 photographs in front of you to compare to one another. Whereas with a sequential lineup, you have a one-on-one. What's in your brain versus the photograph in front of you. So you're like, that kind of looks like him. Not sure. Let me see the rest. As a matter of fact, in most photographic lineup procedures, sequential lineup procedures, you have to show all of the photographs anyway. So I used to have an analogy for it. It's like a DVD versus a VCR, but it's basically the DVD in your brain. You're comparing 1-to-1 in a sequential lineup versus, and by the way, we used a double-blind administration of the sequential lineup. This is how deep it goes. This is why I'm going to tell you that their methods are so faulty. A double-blind lineup means that Eric has nothing to do with this case, and I'm going to pull the 6 photographs. The suspect may or may not be in there, and I'm going to go, Eric, drive this down to 30th and Central, contact this woman, and show her these 6 photographs. And you know why we do that? Because Eric has no stake in it. He has no suggestive. He's not going to go, "You sure number 3 doesn't look familiar?" He has no clue who it is. So we even go as far as to use a double blind. They didn't do that here. Not only did they not do that, they went to the people themselves and said, "Hey, did an Asian guy in a cop uniform rape you?" Talk about suggestion. Like,
Right.
please. All right. So,
And anytime that they're caught in a lie, we're going to go through the evidence here, but every time that they are caught in a lie, they meaning the victims, are caught in a lie, and these victims are liars. I mean, they get caught with evidence that they are lying. They come out and admit that they're lying, and the detectives do not press them on these lies at all. They're almost like it's not the aha moment that we saw with Daniel Holtzclaw. Why is he getting different treatment? Because it's personal, right? Because she in her heart believes that he raped these women for whatever reason that she wants to believe this without going on any evidence whatsoever. And she doesn't even look at this with kind of almost like common sense. And even though that some of these women are caught lying, one being the biggest liar out of all of them, he holds 4 counts and the largest portion of his prison sentence is based on this one woman who admits to being just a complete and utter liar. And we'll go into it. So let's go ahead and start with which one of these videos you want to start with?
How about the phone call? Because that goes right along with the suggestiveness.
So, there we go. Let's play this phone call.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead. And this is coming from the detective that we've been talking about for the last 3 episodes. Plaintiff Sherry Ellis Smith describes assailant as a black man in the detective's interviews, then testifies, "I have never seen him," Daniel, before the trial in her federal civil lawsuit disposition. Sherry Ellis describes the assailant as a black man. This dude is the furthest from black you can get.
Listen to the detective's wording,
which is completely inappropriate. It's inappropriate on a beginner's level. Like even kids in the academy would know that this is inappropriate.
Hello? Is this Sherry?
Yes?
Sherry, this is Detective Davis.
Yes, ma'am?
Okay. You sound frantic in your messages.
Oh, yeah, because I don't know what's going on.
It's okay. That's why I've been wanting to find you and just ask you something, okay?
Okay.
I have received a tip on I work in sex crimes, and I've been working some cases, and I received a tip that you may have been sexually assaulted by a police officer.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there because there's so many things wrong with that. So many things.
So, I mean, like on a fundamental level, on a beginner's level, like I will often stand up for police officers and try to give you perspective or what might be going through their brains for them to make mistakes. But on this, it's so fundamentally bad that I cannot imagine how this detective isn't in front of internal affairs right now or getting retrained. If I use force and I just go a little bit harder, even though it's justifiable or but it was just a little bit harder than I was trained, they are going to, without a doubt, make sure that I go and get retrained immediately.
Listen, I'll tell you,
training right now.
One of the first things she says is, "I work in sex crimes." So we already know what this is about. Now, here's the thing. I get the only time that that's effective, and I'll be real honest about this, no matter what kind of detective you are, the only time that that's effective is if you work in homicide. Because when the homicide cops show up, the homicide detectives show up and they say, "Hey, I'm Detective Baxter from homicide," people stop what they're doing because they know that's business. She's saying, "I work in sex crimes," because she's priming her to let her know, "I'm about to ask you about a sex type question." She says, "I think one of our police officers raped you." And that's not what she says verbatim, but, and by the way, the graphic says detectives didn't receive a tip. If you'll remember, as part of the case, once they received the initial complaint, they went through a history of Daniel's interactions. They targeted specifically black females between a certain age group that were
only black females. They did not research.
Only black
they did
females.
not have one white woman. If this guy's a serial raper, why is he only raping black women?
Prone to drug abuse or prone to drug charges. So let's listen again to what she says and listen to the response.
Assaulted by a police officer.
Yes, I have. But I didn't say anything because I know that I know police department and police, they all stick together.
well, we ain't sticking together on this one.
Oh, okay.
So I would like to interview you.
I didn't ever get his badge number. I don't know anything. I was terrified. I just didn't know what was going on because he said I'll do that, or he was going. I don't know. I didn't know whether if I still did it, or is he going to take me to jail or what. It was a black man.
Okay.
He was in a black and white police car.
Okay, so he was in a black and white Crown Vic. Go ahead, Eric.
And so none of this is adding up at all. Daniel Holtzclaw is the furthest thing from a black person
Not a black
that you can get. He's almost pale white. Like I'm darker than Daniel Holtzclaw. Daniel Holtzclaw is vampire white. Basically as white as you can get. He's Japanese, so I mean he's like white like a Japanese person. You know what I'm talking about? You know, like
yes, like
a Japanese dude that's been working night shift for 2 years.
I don't know. Okay, yeah, doesn't get a lot of sun.
Yeah, and she says he's in a black and white.
His family is from the land of the rising sun,
yes.
But he does not get a lot of sun. All right, go ahead.
And she says that he was in a black and white Crown Victorian police car. The old style police cars. Daniel Holtzclaw never drove that style of police car. He drove an all black, brand new Interceptor police car. Completely different. And the hood knows that. The hood is so in tune because they know that the only people that are driving the old Crown Vics are either A, supervisor, or B, a rookie, brand new. They know. They know what times you patrol. They know they listen to your scanners over there, down there in the hood. Again, I'm talking about the 3 blocks that account for 75% of the crime in the entire fucking city.
Mm-hmm.
3 blocks account for 75% of the crime in the entire city. Over 75%. It's like 78%. So I don't know why the interview doesn't stop here. Why does she need to interview? Okay, well, if I'm her and I find out that a black officer in a Crown Vic has raped you, I want to interview you.
Well, that right.
But now I want to interview him because I'm a sex crimes detective. I want to figure out which one of my black officers.
You would think she would track down the black officer that,
and it would be very
simple
because a Crown Vic, when once a department switches over to the Interceptors, then there's going to be not as many Crown Vics, right? Because now we have mixtures of cars. So you can start narrowing down black cop, Crown Vic.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen in this case at all. I'm still trying to figure out who raped this woman.
All right. So let's, there's something that just dawned on me. I want to go back just a little bit. Listen to how the wind gets taken out of her sails.
Or is he going to take me to jail or what? It was a black man.
Okay.
He was in a black.
She's not happy with that answer.
Okay.
He was a black man. Okay. She's already thinking, okay, this is going to be a problem at trial. She's identifying him as a black man, but I'm still going to push it.
White police car.
He drove a Ford Black Interceptor.
Okay. Keep
Black
going.
Ford Interceptor. It's going. It's just
okay.
Shuri
Ellis
Ellis describes
the assailant as a black, 5'9" tall, darker than her skin tone in her video interview with OCPD detective.
Sherry, I believe you.
Of course you do.
If I didn't believe you, I wouldn't have been calling you.
I mean, it's possible she was raped, but
okay. Let me ask you this: tell me your description of him.
He's black.
He's black male.
Muscular.
How tall could you tell? You're pretty tall. How tall are you? How tall are you?
5'11".
damn.
Is he taller than you or shorter than you?
Like right here, maybe like that.
Shorter.
So
She's saying shorter.
Than you?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of car did he have?
A black and white one.
Black and white car?
Oklahoma City police car.
Okay. Well, let me tell you this. I want to get a DNA sample from you today. And the reason I want to get a DNA sample.
All right, stop really quick.
I know what officer did this.
Now, go ahead and stop. Go ahead and stop. Go ahead and stop. Go ahead and stop.
I stopped it.
Remember when we were going through last week's episode, one person in the chat says, he's not making eye contact. That's a tall tale sign. And I says, well, yes and no. What the tall tale sign is when they're looking down at the ground and not trying to recollect anything. When I'm talking and I'm trying to remember something, I might be looking around the room. But in the case of Daniel Holtzclaw, he was not looking away from the detective. He was looking at the male detective who was writing, and he was looking at the female detective. But he was never staring at the ground in absolute defeat. This woman is staring at the floor. She's not confident in her answers. Her shoulders are slouched. Her neck is completely forward. It looks painful. She is staring at the arm of the chair, which is like, if my 3-year-old is lying to me, I'm like, yo, when a kid goes, when your kid go, what are you doing? And they look at the wall and they start like painting it with their finger. Like,
if I may,
okay.
She's what we call, or what I call, in an interview, or interrogation, she's closed off because yes, her shoulders are slumped. I don't know if it's in defeat. It might be in protection mode. You can see her hands are protecting her most valuable asset, which is not a joke. That's what people do. They protect their arteries. So like you'll see people go to their neck, or they'll go to their crotch to protect that what's the femoral artery or whatever.
Right.
She is looking down in defeat, as in, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm saying this. But I can't read her mind, obviously. And then the suggested.
But I'm just saying, if we want to go down that route, which I said, like that's a bad route to go down, is judging somebody on their eyes. If you want to go down that route, look at the way she answers questions versus the way Holtzclaw answers his questions.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing, and I still think it's a mistake for them to allow the defendant to be backed into that corner like that. What you want to do in an interrogation, I think Detective Davis is in a free, like a chair that swivels and rocks. If you're trying to read somebody's body language, you want them to be able to free float. You don't want them locked into a corner, because that's going to help them control their body language. If you have them in that chair and you're asking that questions and you start turning up the heat a little bit, you'll see that chair spin like 340 degrees back one way, and they'll start rocking and they'll become uncomfortable shifting in the chair. That's the point. You don't want a 4-legged chair for somebody you're interrogating. Now, if somebody you're interviewing, I can see her making the argument for that. But she's definitely that interview room setup is pretty flawed, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not very. And there's like no sound panels either, so it's kind of echoey. It's shitty. I mean, that's piss poor. That's just piss poor. That's just not paying attention to detail, which is funny because she's probably like one that preaches like paying attention to detail. Well, yeah, this is a very valid point that Jill Olson brings up here. She also may be feeling shame, which is very common among rape victims. Now that's true. That's an absolute true statement. Very true. Go ahead. Let's hit play on this real quick.
Yeah, the suggestiveness of the detective again.
Well, let me tell you this. I want to get a DNA sample from you today. And the reason I want to get a DNA sample is because I know what officer did this to you.
Oh, you do?
Oh, you do? Then why am I here?
Some unknown female DNA on his pants that I took. And I want to see if it's yours. This is a waiver saying that you are going to let me, Kim Davis, and I'm a detective, and this is where we're located, are going to let me take buccal swabs. It's just Q-tips on the inside of your mouth to get a DNA sample so I can compare it to the DNA on his pants. Okay?
Yes,
So circumstantially, that paid off because...
When you described him as a black male, what... And I don't know, everybody's like, are you? Are you a medium color? What's your skin tone to you?
I'm light.
You're light. Okay, what was he?
He's darker.
He's darker than you.
Okay, pause it right now. Pause it right now. Pause it right now. We have 1 million listeners and only, so most people do not see this podcast. She is what I would say she's a dark-skinned black female.
I don't think she's dark-skinned, but I mean, maybe my mind.
I see light-skinned. I think she's darker than Will Smith, and she's darker than Tiger Woods. She's probably on the same level of darkness, if I'm describing this as Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
How do you think she's?
I think
compared?
she's like.
You think she's like Tiger Woods or Morgan Freeman?
I think that there is
She's chocolate.
racism with. I think there is racism within the black community.
Well,
Dexter
she's not
has talked
Haitian.
about it
See, I
extensively.
consider like
and even Dexter says there are dark black males and there are light black males, and the light or light black people, and the light black people make fun of the dark black people all the time. That's the whole crux of the first chapter of his book.
But she is not a light-skinned black female to me.
I don't know about that. I think that I don't think that she would be made fun of for being a dark-skinned black female.
I don't think she'd be made fun of, but she's definitely way darker than Tiger Woods. She's way darker than Obama.
Okay. I'm like I said, my monitor could be off. I'm not.
I mean, I think she's like more on the
dispute that.
Michelle Obama brown.
Okay.
You know, chocolate brown. No way that you would confuse her by being white in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So to say that he's darker than her,
right?
That's
on
the
key.
Complete opposite scale of what Daniel Holtzclaw is. Daniel Holtzclaw is like a pale fucking vampire.
Right.
And she's saying that the assailant that raped her is darker and shorter than her. You got to get her out of the room. Like, or you've got to start pinpointing who fucking raped her.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Or not use her in your, I would think that.
By the way, 4 counts of rape on Daniel Holtzclaw come from her.
I think so the gamble paid off because perhaps not a gamble, but she wanted to hear. All she needed to do was hear her say that she was raped. She's like, okay, I want to get a buccal swab from you because I think that I found some DNA and I think it's yours on his pants. And what the lab is going to tell her is, yes, it actually is. What the prosecutor translated that to the jury is her vaginal DNA was on Daniel Holtzclaw's pants. But there is no way to determine if that's vaginal DNA, saliva. I mean, there's no disputing. At some point, they came into contact with one another, but he could have shook hands with somebody who just shook hands with her.
Well, there's 3 males' DNA on the same crotch.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, did he also rape 3 dudes?
Right.
If we're gonna go this route, again, not vaginal DNA, just 1 billion parts per gram. Like that was what I'll go back and get the exact number, but I think that's what it says, is like 1 billionth parts per gram. Like that's a like microscopic shred of DNA, and that was just really didn't, and so that let's just keep playing this. We'll go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. So the text says Sherry Ellis Smith testifies, I've never seen him, meaning Daniel, before trial. This is in her federal civil lawsuit deposition, which was in 2021. We'll get into that in a minute about their settlement and all that. But I think they brought what they call 1983. I think it's 1983 claims against the Oklahoma City, which is a violation of civil rights claim in the federal court system. It basically says that somebody working under the color of color of law, somebody that's working under your uniform committed a crime against me and violated my rights. Therefore, I'm entitled to monetary compensation for your negligence in keeping that person, hired. Or, I mean, there's a couple aspects to it, but
right.
All right, here we go. It's gonna take a second to.
Okay.
The machine's warming up.
Would you raise
Same
your
girl.
right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You state your full legal name?
Sherry Louise Michelle Smith.
Who contacted you? If you
Kim
recall?
Davis.
Detective Davis?
Yes.
Okay. And where did she call you on the phone, or did she meet you in person?
She called me on the phone.
Okay. And what did you tell her on the phone?
She asked me if I had any she asked me if I had any problems with the police officer, and I told her yes.
Did you meet her in person after the phone call?
Yes, sir.
And where did that meeting take place?
The DA's in that building next to the courthouse.
Okay. How tall are you?
5'11".
5'11"? All right. And do you recall explaining to Miss Davis how tall this officer was that assaulted you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, I'm going to hand you another exhibit. We marked it as exhibit number 4. That's a video still of you explaining to the officer how tall the person was that assaulted you. Do you recognize yourself in that image?
Yes, sir.
Is that you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, how tall did you tell was the person that assaulted you?
I don't recall how tall I said he was, but I did say that he was shorter than I was.
Okay. And we say shorter than you by about how much? I mean, in that image, it looks like you're holding your hand up maybe to your shoulders.
Yeah.
So he came up to about your shoulders?
Yeah.
So
Daniel
maybe
Holtzclaw's way taller.
5'6"?
Yes.
A shorter man?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And how else would you physically describe the officer, other than by height?
I had said that he was black. He was dark complected. I think black is what I said.
I'm marking this plaintiff's exhibit A. I have a copy for you here. Miss Alice, do you recognize this individual?
You're showing a picture of Daniel Holtzclaw.
How do you recognize that person?
From court.
Okay.
Not from being raped
Do you
by him.
recognize that person from any other time in your life?
No.
All right, just out of experience, when you show a rape victim their raper that they don't know, that's not the reaction they have. Just think about that. They would lose their
At
shit.
the time you were at trial, did you believe you had seen that individual before?
No.
She looked at the picture again.
I seen him during trial. That's when I seen him.
Okay. Had you had any previous interactions with that man to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. Besides him.
What do you mean?
It's besides, I have never seen him but before trial. That's when I finally seen who.
Now this man, pause it.
accused of
This
raping
man
me.
is sitting in prison with 4 counts of rape on this woman right here.
Yep.
Although the rape charges, there was no DNA for this charge. No DNA came back to her on this charge.
She accounts for 62 years of the 264 that he got.
And the AVL, the GPS system, does not coincide with any of this of her story at all. And so with no GPS evidence, with no DNA evidence on this particular woman, why is her story, who she's saying she's been raped by a black man, why is Daniel Holtzclaw sitting in prison for over 200 years based on what this woman has to say? Why is what she has to say? Now, listen, there's 13 other women. We're only talking about this one. And we're only talking about this one because he holds 4 charges from this woman. The majority of his charges come from this woman, not the one who started the investigation, which they had 0 evidence of. 0 evidence. They hold this one. Now, is this the one that they had the minuscule amount of... Who is the one that Ted like? Because there's 13 women here. Which one does he have the minuscule amount of DNA on?
I believe it's the 17-year-old, but I don't know her name off the top of my head.
Right, and the 17. Yeah, we're not going to name her. Her initials were SH, by the way. But now she is the one that he's been completely acquitted for. So the only one that they found DNA, he was completely acquitted because her story was completely bonkers, and then she recants her story. we also have SB Barksdale here. He's holding 2 counts of rape from her. And she was actually charged in this case with a false report. And then she recants her entire story. However, he still holds 2 counts from her. So remember now, we've got 8 counts. And 4 counts are coming from this woman. And now we've got 2 counts from this next one. Play this next one. This is Miss Barksdale.
This is plaintiff Tabitha Barnes. She's testifying that he didn't touch me in her federal lawsuit on October 30th, 2018. So it lists the transcript.
Okay, so if we're going to go with Tabitha Barnes, he's holding 3 convictions from her. That's okay. You can keep playing it. Now, just remember, keep in your mind, he's holding 3 convictions from this female right here. 3 convictions. 4, 5, 6, 7.
How many times did Holtzclaw touch you inappropriately?
He didn't touch me.
He never touched you?
No.
Next to the third to the last line says, Holtzclaw then asked Plaintiff Barnes if there was anything under her breast and fondled Plaintiff Barnes's naked breast. Do you see that?
You just read it. Yes, I see it, sir.
Isn't that different than what you testified today?
What do you mean is that different?
Didn't you say Holtzclaw didn't touch you?
He didn't touch me.
So this is a mistake.
He did not touch me.
Okay, and if you go back to Defendant's Exhibit number 11, which is the information, count 1.
Go ahead.
5 lines from the bottom of count 1, directing TB to expose her breast and then touching her bare breast with his hand without her consent. That's also a mistake.
He didn't touch me.
Okay. And you understand that Mr. Holtzclaw was convicted of sexual battery on that count as a result of your testimony?
Yes.
So that would have been a lie?
What would have been a lie?
The fact that he was charged with touching you.
I don't know what he was charged with. I know he was charged with 3 counts of me exposing myself.
Okay.
Just one further question, Ms. Barnes. You would agree, would you not, that you have to be 100% truthful about what you've told us today for you to prevail in your lawsuit?
This is for money.
Yes.
It's a civil suit.
Okay. And you've been 100% truthful with us today about everything that you claimed?
So pause it really quick.
Yeah,
pause it really quick.
Like,
This woman is as poor can get. This money, she needs this money. This is the reason why this whole thing was started to begin with, in my opinion, was because these women saw an opportunity to make money. If you don't believe me and you want to see how the hood works, go watch the recent videos of the hood ransacking Target. They don't take a single piece of clothing. They don't take a single diaper. They don't take a single piece of groceries. They go after nothing but electronics, DVDs, and anything that looks of value and expensive. If they were doing this because they were poor and they needed they needed a break, they would have been stealing something way different. If they were really, really at the bottom, at rock bottom, they would be taking things from rock bottom. Yeah. I've been in the military. I've been deployed. I've been at rock bottom. I know how important food and shit is. Listen, I've been to a particular school where I was starving, where I was so hungry that I was willing to fake memorize a credit card and go in there and use a credit card, even knowing that I know I was going to get kicked out of the course because I was going to sneak into a gas station with this memorized credit card number and get food and ruin my whole military career over it. So I know kind of what bottom of the barrel is. This woman right now is super poor, and this is her opportunity to make money, and she's saying that she's full of shit. And they have come out before this and asked why, and she says because they actually feel bad that he's in prison over the lie. And so her conscience is leading her to tell the truth over the money, which I think is pretty important to note, that she is choosing, her conscience actually beat her. And she is telling the truth now because she has felt bad that he's got. I don't think that she knew that their lies were going to get him 260 years, maybe 5 years. They could live with that. Fucking over a cop and a politically heated police movement,
Well,
in the birth of BLM, they can handle 5 years of prison.
No,
But when he
and
got
just-
sentenced to 260 years, they're like, oh shit, like we
just
fucked
go
this
back
dude
to
over.
just go back to episode 1 with, in the streets, like, fuck it if we send an innocent cop to jail. How many innocent people in the hood have gone to jail because of the cops' misconduct?
Sure.
Like, fuck him, and we're going to get money out of it. But I think once the gravity of the whole thing hit, where it's like, man, you gave that guy 263 years. He didn't rape me. I was just doing it for a paycheck.
Right, and now I think she's still getting like $25,000 out of the settlement too. By the way,
They agreed to a settlement where they split, I believe, $21,000 among the 5 or 6 of them. I don't know the terms.
Right. So because
And
the civil court, so the trial, this is not the trial, this is the civil suit, but in the trial, which was years before this, was so politically motivated, and mainstream media had published so many things about this guy being on roids. Not true. Proven not true. Not a single drug test shows that he was on steroids. He had a flaw, like his ex-girlfriends said nothing but wonderful things about him. His colleagues, if you're a perverted deviant, we know who you are. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the evidence I'm going to offer in this. I had where I worked, I had a legal department of like 9 attorneys, 7 attorneys, and they did not settle anything unless it was an extreme, like, ooh, we really fucked up on this one. Beyond that, they fought everything, and it took years and years for those people to get a dime out of any settlement. They didn't settle on anything. So to me, when they finally settle on $21,000 a piece, it means there's no merit to this whatsoever. Like they probably pay because what an agency is going to do is, look, just fucking pay them. Let's get this out of our way. Give them their $8 million. Right. Look at the George Floyd family, or George Floyd's family didn't get that money. Whoever got that money. Look at Breonna Taylor's family. Look at look at Kenneth Walker, the guy that shot John Mattingly. He got $1.3 million. It's to make it go away. This guy got sentenced to 268 years in prison or whatever it was. They didn't give a shit if it went away or not, because they know that they're not going to pay for that, because it didn't happen. They know it didn't happen. I think if anything,
but they had to have it happen because they said it because Ferguson, the Michael Brown case, the officer was let go, and they couldn't have one second one within 2 years get let go. They literally, that is out there in the newspapers. That right. they let the guy go for the Michael Brown. They're not going to let this guy go. And they knew that the towns were going to burn down. Everything was going to get lit up on fire. And so they had to find this guy guilty. And the prosecutor, this was a great chance for them to make a name for themselves. So they had, and this detective as well. And the case just gets, it's just more flawed. So remember the 4 counts, the main part of this case, he's going to jail for the 4 counts that the woman says he's a black man. So the rest of these are exposures. These are exposures.
Yeah.
Now, how many times have you searched a black woman in the ghetto
and told her to lift her bra?
Order, dude, and they have flashed you?
Yeah, listen,
almost weekly.
There was a famous case down here. I think it made it to the Supreme Court, as a matter of fact, where, women hide drugs in bras. Newsflash.
And their cigarettes and their keys and their debit cards and their identification cards. Here's something that we didn't cover in that first episode. We were trying to explain the hood. In the hood, they have been searched so much because you're in 3 blocks where they don't do anything but crime. All these women have felony charges. So they've been around police. They've been searched several times. For whatever reason, when you say, hey, do you have anything in your bra? You always have to preamble that with, without showing me. Without showing me.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have anything in your bra? Because if you don't without showing me, and you say anything in your bra and you forget, nope. And they whip out them danglers. They dangle. And they dangle. These aren't women that you want to go home with. They smell bad. They walk around all day. Poor hygiene. I would not trust that there's not a plethora of diseases. The whole 3 blocks is riddled with AIDS and HIV and hepatitis and all the nasties. I don't see gambling that on 13 women from this particular neighborhood for those cases. Now SB, the next one we're going to go to, Barksdale. Remember, guys, Remember, 4 counts was from the one that said it's a black man. 3 coming from this one that we just showed you, TB, where she says, he never touched me. He never touched me. He was charged with me exposing, because she thought that doesn't matter. He's probably going to get, me exposing my breast. That's nothing. He's not doing hundreds of years for exposing my breast. He didn't touch me. Then we have Janet Liggins, who he's hold 2 counts of rape for her, even though there's zero evidence, including she had been caught in multiple lies. He has been caught in 0 lies from that case. Mm-hmm. Now we're on to SB. He holds 2 counts from her, and she's been charged with filing a false report. Go ahead and play this one. This is the Barksdale one.
Okay, there we go.
Explain to me again why you came in here. You signed this. This is your piece of paper. This is your story that you gave me, right? Why? And this is the story that you told. Why?
I just felt bad for her, and I just wanted to know, like, she wasn't the only victim or anything.
You felt bad for who?
The lady. She was so
what lady? I've got lots of ladies.
Well, I only know about the 57-year-old. That's the only one I know about.
And you found out about her from what?
The Facebook.
Okay.
KOCO5.
And you decided to do what?
Just write. Just do something on her behalf, because I felt bad for her.
He was convicted of 2 charges from this lady.
So
I wasn't trying to go to trial or anything.
I wasn't trying to go to trial or anything. I was just anti-cop, and I was willing to say some
and
shit.
You thought it would do what?
Made you feel like she's not the only one. But I didn't know it was others.
Wow. And there wasn't others. There wasn't others. Somebody says that Tanzalicious is looking fresh as a daisy. Sleep does a body good. I am fresh as a daisy, and sleep does do a body good. And you know why it does a body good? It's because I sleep on a Ghostbed. Mm-hmm. Ghostbed has the most amazing and most comfortable beds with the cooling technology. It's hot as shit right here in North Carolina. It's getting hotter. It's the summertime. And when I lay myself down on that cool, nice Ghostbed, I sleep. It sleeps so good that it's legit scary. I sleep through my kids crying. I sleep through my kids waking up and making breakfast. My son made a hot dog yesterday for breakfast, but it was a breakfast sausage wrapped in a pancake bun, topped with hash browns and a little dollop of syrup. And he saw it in a magazine and got up and created it. And I slept through all of that with my wife. My wife woke up at 6:45 and says, "Oh my God, I think something's burning." She ran out, and he had been cooking since like 6 a.m. 45 minutes, and nothing was burnt. It was just beautiful, wonderful breakfast that we all had to get up and enjoy. My only complaint there was that the syrup was cold. But thanks to my Ghostbed, I slept through all of that. And mental wellness starts with a good night's sleep. If you're a first responder and you're having problems sleeping, I got 99 problems, but going to bed ain't one. That's because I sleep on a freaking Ghostbed. It's got that adjustable base that damn near puts that bitch into a couch, so you can watch CommCenter, you can watch Night Shift while in your bed sitting up. It also has the remote controls. It's got all the devices on the side of the bed. You can get the adjustable base and frame. You can just get the mattress. You can get the cooling sheets. If you don't have those, Egyptian cotton's cool, but you ever had Ghostbed cooling sheets? No, you haven't. Go to ghostbed.com/Wolfpack right now and get daddy some sheets. Get daddy one of those pillows. Get daddy one of those mattresses, one of those toppers, one of those comforters. 0% down, 0% financing, and that's if you have Lázaro Lopez credit. These things are absolutely ridiculous. Go to ghostbed.com/Wolfpack today and get you a bed that sleeps so good it's scary. All right, with that, we've just heard Barksdale's case. Now, she says that she made it all up. He's still going to hold 2 counts. And then there's another woman here, RC, that has 1 count, and that's for exposing himself. And then we've got AG that has 3 counts where he claims that he fingered her on a pat down. No witnesses, no DNA. No witnesses, no DNA. So when we trump up all these charges, when we go through all of the charges, that's and the media likes to blow this out of proportion by saying there was, hundreds of charges, or tens of charges, 20s of charges. Because I think in all it was 20s of charges, 30, right?
No, I don't think it was that.
36 total.
36 total charges.
Okay, I'm sorry.
36 out of those 36. How many held? 13.
18 convictions. They only got a 50% conviction rate.
And out of those 18, four of those came from the four major ones come from the woman we just showed you. I'm not going to go back on through it, but now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 6 other victims who completely their stories were so completely bogus and so completely wrong and false by GPS data, by time of day, by year, where he wasn't even employed as a police officer, that they just couldn't even go to trial. But the media ran with this. I think at the end of all of this, you can't help but, even with a ghost bed, stay awake in bed at night thinking, how can this man be doing 260 years based on the story of women who were all convicted felons, who all had a reason, who had a motive to lie, who were caught in several lies. But all of a sudden we believe them and we don't believe the guy who's caught in 0 lies. We've labeled him a sociopath and a roid rager, even though he cried his eyes out. And there's no evidence whatsoever of him doing roids.
None.
And that is what all of the podcasts go for.
He had been tested
sociopathic, toxic white male, jacked up on steroids, even though he was tested, and it's just not true.
No. It's and there is. I don't give a shit if he was on steroids. That's not prima facie evidence of him raping, 16 women or 13 women or whatever. You can be on steroids in this country. It's illegal if you're caught in possession of them. It doesn't make you a rapist. And like I said before, the roid rage thing, listen, it's not selective. So if he was on roids, I think his use of force reports would be through the roof. He probably would have been fired for beating the shit out of somebody or killing somebody already. I mean, a lot of people are on steroids.
And the fact that you have 0 character witnesses that come out against Daniel Holtzclaw.
Right.
Keep talking for just a second. I want to close this out by reading something that one of the lawyers wrote about this.
I just to sum up what I'm saying is crucial in any case. Listen, you can be a convicted felon, or you could be a drug offender, you could be a crack whore, you could be a prostitute, and still be a victim of a crime. There's no shame in that whatsoever, and the police have an obligation to investigate that fully to make sure that everybody deserves the protection. It doesn't matter if you're nefarious in your life or whatever. Everybody deserves that dignity and that protection. That's the police's job. So that's not the issue. What the issue that I see is I've discussed some of the eyewitness identification procedures. There's a whole Innocence Project that's trying to free people from prison for being put in jail for, among other reasons, faulty evidence procedures. Or eyewitness evidence procedures. So this is how incredibly important this is. You can't go in saying, I know who did this to you. Well, you don't even know if anything was done to them, and you're saying you know who did it. They're unfortunately thinking cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. If you look back, I credit Adam Carolla for this. If you look back when we were kids, maybe not so much you, Eric, you saw like when you stayed home sick from school and you watched Price is Right and Gilligan's Island, there were nothing but like truck school ads or like trade school ads, welder or whatever. Now, when you watch shows like that, People's Court, or when you watch like Jerry Springer reruns or whatever, what are the ads you see? They're all attorneys. Everything is about personal injury. Call me. Don't say anything to the police if you're in an accident. Call me, and I'll get you into a chiropractor. We'll get you paid. And that's where America has turned, litigious. So these people know that, and they're like, okay, I'm about to get paid here, so all I have to do is play along. They're feeding me my lines. I just have to play along. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm going to close it out. I'm going to read this. I think it's important. And this is something this guy did on his own. This is just a closer look by Brian Bates. Here we go. let me just go down here. I'm just going to read it. I'm just going to read it. This is on the free Daniel Holt. This is on the Holtzclawtrial.com, Holtzclawtrial.com. On January 21st, 2016, former Oklahoma City officer Daniel Holtzclaw was sentenced to 263 years in prison after an Oklahoma County jury found him guilty of 18 sexual assault-related crimes against 8 female accusers. Holtzclaw was acquitted of 18 other charges. What comes next, I've written and rewritten dozens of times in an attempt to accurately, concisely, and fairly portray what I personally witnessed in regards to this investigation, trial, and aftermath of the state of Oklahoma versus Daniel Holtzclaw. I'm not simply going to give you my opinion of Daniel Holtzclaw's guilt or innocence. I want to qualify that opinion. But more than that, I want to provide insights to this case that were never reported and never considered by a public that has been all too eager to redefine Daniel Holtzclaw as the poster child for decades of abuse against minorities by those with not only the ability to do so, but presumably an almost unquestionable authority to do so. In this article, I intentionally stay away from theories, race, backgrounds, jury makeup, or influences, and whys. I want to limit this article to just the facts as they appear in discovery documents that were presented in open court and have been revealed since the trial. Not long after Daniel Holtzclaw was arrested and criminally charged, I was called and asked by his defendant lawyer, Scott Adams, to take a look at this case and give my opinion. The conversation went something like this. Scott Adams, so how badly have you roasted my client on your website? Brian Bates, the man who wrote this. Actually, I haven't yet. I was waiting for some of the details. Scott Adams, I'm sure. Before you do that, I'd like to ask you to look over some of the evidence and give me your gut reaction. My guy claims he's completely innocent, but you know how that goes. You may know some of these women, and you may be able to give us some insights as to why they'd make up these accusations if they are not true. Or maybe my guy's guilty, and you can convince me of that. In that case, I need to focus on a plea. At the time, I was known for an advocacy website. Brian was known for an advocacy website that he ran. He says, I ran that often highlighted police offenses and those who victimize some of the most vulnerable among society. So this guy is pretty much on the inner city side here. He's pretty much anti-cop. I've known Mr. Adams both personally and professionally for several years. I've worked directly and indirectly on many of his cases. I first formally met Mr. Adams when I hired him in 2005. I'm not going to go into this, but let me skip down. Unlikeliest of allies. Upon meeting Daniel Holtzclaw for the very first time, Mr. Adams' office, while Daniel was out of jail on bond, his first words to me were, you know, they taught us about you and the police academy. An unflattering reference to my 20 plus years of high-profile activism spotlighting street prostitution and human trafficking in Oklahoma City through my website, johntv.com, and numerous local, national, and international television appearances. Activism that often has me harshly criticizing police and the Oklahoma County District Attorney's Office. According to Daniel, the police academy at the time dedicated a portion of their curriculum to me specifically and how to handle encounters with me. Daniel Holtzclaw is over 6 feet tall, 270 pounds, and has the air of self-confidence that often comes with such a massive physical frame and a badge and a gun, with all the authority granted to law enforcement. To be honest, upon first glance, Daniel Holtzclaw embodied just about every negative stereotype of a police officer that I ever held. He was white. He obviously spends a lot of time at the gym. He's cocky. And his mindset in the end justifies the means when you're a police officer protecting the citizenry from the scum of the city. But as I spent those first few hours going over the case with Daniel Holtzclaw, I realized something far more important. Daniel Holtzclaw truly believed in his innocence and in the judicial system. He placed his life on the line every day to protect. I've worked on many cases with truly guilty sexual assault predators. And all of those cases, there was this inexplicable sense of doubt upon hearing their version of events and the involuntary feeling of the hairs beginning to stand up on the back of one's neck simply by being in the same room with them. That never once happened in any of my interactions with Daniel Holtzclaw. After meeting with Mr. Adam, then with Daniel, and finally with Daniel's father, who at the time was a lieutenant at another police agency in another city, I was asked to officially assist in Daniel's defense. Do I think Daniel Holtzclaw is guilty or innocent? Since I was asked to be a part of the Daniel Holtzclaw defense team, I have spent literally hundreds of hours with Daniel, his father, his mother, his sisters, his friends, his girlfriend, More importantly, I've read, watched, and listened to every piece of evidence and potential evidence in this case. I also visited each and every alleged crime scene on multiple occasions, and I did so with the understanding that if at any time it became clear Daniel Holtzclaw was guilty of even just a single crime, that I would bow out of the case altogether. The fact that I assisted in this case through the entire trial and literally sat with Daniel Holtzclaw in his jail cell until only an hour before his guilty verdict was announced should make my opinion crystal clear. I do not believe Daniel Holtzclaw is guilty of the crimes he was charged with and later convicted of. Do I know with 100% certainty that Daniel is innocent? No. The only people that know that are Daniel and his accusers. What I do know is that the allegations against Daniel Holtzclaw are highly suspect, and the investigation, prosecution, and trial were far from what was depicted by the local, national, and international media. My critics will say, why, of course you think he's innocent. You were hired to be a part of his defense team. You are biased. I do not hold that opinion against my critics. I most certainly am biased. But that bias was not created as a result of blindly supporting Daniel Holtzclaw. My bias is a direct result of reviewing every piece of evidence in this case. My bias is also formed by many aspects of this case that should trouble every citizen that could one day find themselves or a loved one in the crosshairs of a judicial system that is being pushed along by a public hell-bent on convicting a man with such questionable evidence. Regardless of bias, because we are all guilty of having one, that doesn't change these concerning facts. 1, no prior history. Directly from the jury transcripts, defense attorney Scott Aslam also would be fair statement to say that during your investigation, you were unable to locate any third party whatsoever of any nature that would say that they ever witnessed Officer Holtzclaw do anything inappropriate. That is correct, according to Detective Rocky Gregory. They couldn't find one witness. Daniel has not a single moment in his past that supports the assertion he is a racist or he's abusive to women to any degree, sexually, physically, or emotionally, or otherwise. Investigators interviewed people Daniel had contact with while living in Oklahoma City and working for the Oklahoma City Police Department. When those interviews failed to produce any negative sentiment towards Daniel, they next went to his college town just outside of Detroit and then to his high school hometown of Enid, all with the singular purpose of finding someone, anyone, who could cast the shadow over Daniel's character. Try as they might, they could not. Not a single ex-girlfriend, classmate, teammate, one-night stand, co-worker, not even an acquaintance. Nobody would say Daniel was anything but quiet, respectful, kind, and focused on his girlfriend, career, and his physique. Prosecutors went so far as to send investigators to the gym where Daniel and his girlfriend worked out, specifically to try to prove he was cheating on her. A witch hunt that proved to be completely untrue, but it is a common tactic of immoral prosecutors and investigators. You want to put pressure on a defendant, cause turmoil on their support systems. You see, Daniel's girlfriend at the time wasn't just any supporter of Daniel's. She was also the sister of a prosecutor in the very office that was seeking to imprison Daniel for life. This reality enraged the prosecution. So much so, lead prosecutor Galen Geiger could not contain his hatred during Daniel's girlfriend's cross-examination, going so far as to admit that the jury he was being unsuccessfully crude with her. Number 2, the victim profile was created out of thin air. According to the detective's own formal reports, within 24 hours of Janie Ligon's initial complaint, investigators assumed there must be additional victims. To find those victims, Lieutenant Timothy Musney of the Oklahoma City Police Department arbitrarily had detectives compile a list of all the black females Daniel had contact with that had a history of prostitution and drugs, even though Liggins herself had no criminal conviction for drugs or prostitution. Detective Kim Davis and Rocky Gregory then began randomly contacting women on that list. The list soon took on a life of its own and became known by prosecutors and the media as Daniel's perfect victims, even though the main victim, remember, doesn't fit the profile of any of the rest of the victims. At the jury trial, the prosecution denied the physical existence of this list, even though police records are full of direct references to it. Matter of fact, I think we played a clip. Do you have that clip, Deadleg, where she makes reference to the list?
Darian.
Well,
like I say, I know that we really didn't talk about anything. You called up to the sex crimes and just said that you wanted to come forward in reference to that officer. I knew what you were talking about that. And I know we didn't talk on the phone or anything about it. So we're just going to start from the very, very beginning. Okay.
How was you looking for me?
Yeah, when I told you, I was looking for you because I have a list kind of going off of, you know, and
Go ahead and stop it.
It was kind of odd because
she says that, why did y'all come for me? Why did y'all come looking for me? And he said, because we have a list. We had a list. And so I'm going to read one more part of this and then we'll be done. No need to search. He says, even though Daniel Holtzclaw consented to allow investigators access to all of his clothing, personal vehicle, personal cell phone, computers, apartment, Detective Davis and Gregory never chose to exercise those options. When Daniel turned over his uniform during his interrogation, seasoned sex crimes investigators felt there was no need to take Daniel's underwear into custody for testing. So if he raped somebody through his pants, through his underwear, a seasoned sex crime detective doesn't feel like taking the underwear is necessary. That's lazy. That's lazy. That's complete laziness. Additionally, these same seasoned investigators never searched Daniel's personal vehicle. They never searched his cell phone. They never searched his apartment or his computer. Detectives didn't even request his additional uniform shirts and pants that were hanging in his closet and laying in his dirty clothes. He concludes this. He just goes on and on and on. There's 13 more things. There's 13 more paragraphs. I'm not going to read them all. But in summary, he says, I've worked on this case for countless hours. While nobody outside of Daniel's and his accusers can definitively say that these crimes did or did not happen, I can say with 100% confidence, justice was not served and that Daniel was not proven to be guilty of a single crime. What happened in that courtroom should cause everyone to fear the jury system as we know it and remind the citizenry that prosecutors are not seekers of justice. They prosecute. That's all they know. And they often do it regardless of the truth. Daniel did not choose the perfect victims. I submit to you that the prosecutors picked the perfect accusers. I believe Daniel to be an innocent man, and Daniel's story should be told.
So we're telling it. I mean, I'm Eric. I think whether this guy is guilty or innocent, I mean, I'm leaning towards innocence versus guilty or not guilty. At any rate, everyone deserves a fair trial. And I just based on the evidence that was collected and the way I see that it was collected, I cannot see, without watching the trial, I cannot see how this was a fair trial.
What can you do to help? Let the Holtzclaw family know that you're on their side. Tell this story. Share this. Just share the third part of this three-part series. I know that some audio issues and not being with Drew, but this third episode I think is really important. Or share any of the other podcasts that are done about this, and let the people. Amanda Knox did one. Wrongfully Convicted did one. But you got to tell this story, guys, because this could happen to anyone. The only reason, maybe back in the day, people were wrongfully convicted because of the color of their skin. That wasn't right. But nor is it right that anybody should be convicted because of their job choice. And the only reason that he was charged with any of these crimes is because he was a cop in a time when everybody hated cops. For myself, Deadleg, Elijah, Drew Bates, Drew Breezy, this has been Failure to Stop Breakdown. Until next time, guys, guns up and giddy up.